Hey Trevor, I hope you're well. Um, I am coming back to you on presenting another idea, so Rebecca's idea of the week. I'm here at my co-working space, whoopsie, that you can see behind me, which is great, over in Martin Place, which I enjoy very much, and it's great for ideation, so creation of ideas. What I'm talking about with you today is what I've called Idea 2. And the goal around this idea is to create an environment for increased sales performance. So I think there's definitely an opportunity here to look at there's a statement in sales that we use called environment dictates sales. One of the reasons I'm at a co-working space is because I'm surrounded with like-minded individuals who run their own business and execute sales as well. That's definitely a principle I've learnt a lot of the time the hard way over time. And it's not at all to say that we're doing really badly, but as always, I think if you can improve, there's that element of constant and never-ending improvement, which I'm sure that you already know is a principle called Kaizen, so a Japanese principle called Kaizen. And my idea here is leveraging an opportunity to increase sales figures and increase sales performance or peak performance. So the concept around this is really called peak performance sales days. And the reason why I've picked sales days rather than changing the whole model as it is to really look at leveraging this as a bit of an experiment to start seeing whether this concept tests well. And if it does, then you're really creating a benchmark or you're getting data to be able to say, well, this is the type of environment that works. How much investment will it take to shift across to an environment like that? So I'm aware that there are a lot of different machinations and new ways of doing things in terms of ideas, but as you know, without testing them and experimenting with them, it's really difficult to move from A to Z hoping that the reality that you're moving to over at Z is going to pan out the way that you like it. And I think in terms of like that Chamber 2.0 project, obviously one of the impetus goals is to, I'm assuming anyway, to be able to create an environment or a sales environment where those sales are growing. And I think I saw in the strategic plan that we're meant to be going from 20,000 to 100,000 members. There's obviously a sales effort that has to happen now. Like I said, it's not like it's bad at the moment, but is there room for improvement? And I think if we're looking to remain relevant and be a sustainable business, that looking at growing the business through a sales effort should really be on the priority list of things that are tested, to be honest. So what's my idea around peak performance sales days? I'm just going to start with, I think, the master of leadership here. As you know, I'm a big fan, Charles Schwab. So you may already know about the story of how Charles is able to motivate other individuals to increase the level of their performance. So this is about performance overall, not necessarily in sales. I think we can take the lesson and apply it to sales. So when, as you're aware, Charles was the master of the steel plants way back when in the 1900s, early 1900s. And when he went around to a couple of manufacturing plant floors, he found in one of the ones that were doing very poorly that the managers there weren't able to motivate their staff to increase their performance. They weren't producing enough output. So when he went there to do a walk around, he'd said to the day shift, how many pieces of output have you done today? And they said 11. And so he got a piece of chalk and wrote down on the floor 11. Then the night shift workers came in and said, well, what is this 11 on the ground? And they said the big boss came in today, asked the day shift how much they produced, and they said 11. So the night shift workers obviously did their shift and wiped out one of the ones and replaced it with a 13. And you can imagine what happened over time, that the plant just organically became one of the most productive plants under that whole empire. The lesson from this is how to stimulate competition, healthy competition amongst workers, or amongst the teams, rather. Teams is a better word, amongst teams, to be able to motivate peak performance. So my idea here is creating an environment where we've got two teams. So we're all obviously part of the one sales team, but a great example would be if we had, say, one region from the Illawarra come in one day and one region from, like, say, the Central Coast come in one day. We've got two teams in the exact same environment, same room, and we say, well, it's a bit of a, sorry about the noise, it's a bit of a face-off for the day. So whoever can do the most, obviously, wins that competition at the end of the day. So there's that effort and reward concept. So that's really where, firstly, the idea is stimulated from. So my idea is create an environment that dictates that sales performance. So the first part is, well, as you know, like when you want to achieve something, who do you look to who's doing really well at it? And there are two firms who we can do a direct case study with. We can even go into their offices very easily. One contact you'd know very well from the chamber who can set you up. The others, I'm sure you already know people, if not, happy to make introductions. But two forward-thinking companies that have peak performing sales environments are Salesforce and Google. So what can we learn from their teams? Obviously, we've got ideas of how they work and we've all seen how they present themselves. But what if we spent a day, so a day in their environments to see these are the systems, these are the processes, this is the environment, and this is what the setup is, to be able to analyze, well, this is what the environment looks like that we need to replicate. Taking that one step further, instead of looking at maybe investing in recreating that environment back at home, so back at our headquarters, what if we were to test out that environment and possibly negotiate a way with either Salesforce or Google to have, whether it's 10 people from our sales team spend a week at their offices, or maybe 2 days at their offices, in amongst their sales environment, or alternatively, we could rent out or just hot desk for 1 week, or it could be like 1 month when we run this experiment, a series of desks. So whether it's a co-working space or something like that, I don't know, but somewhere where there's a high quality sales environment. And the concept is to be able to walk in where there's already peak performing sales environment, so we're leveraging off that performance. Okay, so just visualize if we've got, say, 10 sales team members walking into a Google environment, maybe like 1 day, or it could be 5 days, okay, to run this experiment. This is creating a sales hothouse. Based on being able to motivate the team. So if you've got 10 people, we'll split them into 2 teams of 5, each of them with the same goal. Make as many sales of membership, for example, as possible in 1 day. And that really needs to be, rather than a directive, but there needs to be that motivation on how they're going to do that. So, and creating that environment of how they're going to do that. And that would involve several things. Not only that, like I've learned throughout my own sales experience, but also throughout reading on what really makes a good sales environment. So firstly, early morning briefings. So constant communication, I found, throughout the sales cycle, throughout the day, has a huge impact on performance, particularly when you're looking at trying to leverage that competitive principle off against 2 teams. So in your early morning briefing, it's a reflection of the previous day's results, what today's targets need to be, and what we're working towards, and obviously motivation there. Whether people are doing really well or not, there still needs to be that encouragement from the team leaders on those days to be able to help them push forward. Okay. What also needs to happen are small prizes and wins for people on the day. So it can be, like, normally there's silly things, but there's small things that can make a difference because they compound over time, as you know. So at the end of the day, it can be something like presenting a token prize. So whoever's made the most sales, that team gets a bottle of champagne. And I'm aware champagne can be quite expensive, but in the broad scheme of things, it can be quite manageable. But just a little presentation of who's achieved the most throughout the day. Those little acknowledgements start to snowball and can start to really seed that competitiveness in showing what can really be done. Also, the environment, I feel, needs to be quite intimate. So what you'll see when you're in the Googles and the Salesforces is not people crammed together, but there is that environment that creates the stimulation of energy of other people. So that they're not people don't generally have their own offices all to themselves, a little bit dissimilar to this office at the moment, but you see outside people stacked next to each other to be able to create hype, essentially. Environment dictates performance. If we need a little bit of hype, we need motivation, we need people who aren't afraid of getting on the phones and hitting the phones, then that's the type of environment we need to create for them. I think something that we neglect to do probably, I guess, a more, whether it's a high pressure sales environment or not, depending on what we want to create, but on the hour, every hour reporting. So which team has made the most calls, which team has had the most quotes, which team have actually sold something. On the hour, consistent reporting can help maintain that competition and tracking. Like, yes, it's a little bit stressful, but that's just how high performance sales teams work. That communication and transparency on activity is managed. I think the next part is to ensure the enablement of improved performance. The enablement really means that the people on the ground doing the job have all of the tools to be able to sell. So that means that they've had the appropriate training, they've been coached, and what's really important in sales is on-the-job coaching. And I know we do a lot of that internally, but making sure within that experiment, what's a hothouse experiment is making sure that there's someone there to help people through objection handling, to sit on the calls, to help say, well, you did really well, but this is how we can improve for next time. So there's someone that they can turn to just with that immediacy to say, and that person may have heard and can really help them on the phone. That's a particularly effective way to uplift if someone's not confident with the product, particularly. Obviously, in environments like that, they need to be pre-prepared and washed call lists and appropriate data for people to call. So that's preempting sales performance as well as making sure that they're fully prepared. I mean, preparation with anything is key, as you know. So why not apply it to a sales day? I've also got here that I think there need to be, again, like energy and environment stimulates performance. So theming a room, theming that environment, whether it's a color, whether it's branding, whether it's product, or it's something fun, branding it, making sure that there's the appropriate types of food, can really help, making sure that there's positive music in the background. A lot of the time with phones or phone selling, it can be quite intimidating to call if you're the first one on the call, no one else is talking. Like, it's kind of like being asked to go up on stage in front of all of your peers and embarrass yourself. So having that background music might help alleviate that fear of, oh, am I going to be embarrassed? Am I going to be shut down in front of everyone? Even if you are, that music can really help eradicate that fear, and having that upbeat, bouncy, energetic music can help really create that environment. I think another idea that's kind of intertwined between the morning session, the daily reporting, and the ongoing coaching is to have stand-up sessions, whether it's once in the morning, the afternoon, and maybe halfway throughout the day. And that's for all of the teams to get involved and say, what's working, what's not working, what are the objections, what can we do better, just for, I guess, that team environment to alleviate some of the concerns, particularly if they're experiencing blockages on a call. That would be a great environment and a safe environment for everyone to, I guess it's kind of on-the-job training, but it's group learning, to really encourage group learning, group coaching, rather than maybe once a month in a meeting, this is what changing, this is what we found, then those changes can be made more immediate if you're doing that on the day itself. And you've created that experience in that environment where it's safe for people to pipe up and say, you know what, that was crap, this was good, this is what worked, this is how I got the quote done, and that's something everyone else can replicate to make it better, which is good. So I think this kind of ties back to, the concept of training and what you really need for an effective sales team. So the couple of different environments, you need certain types of players, we call them. And this is, you'll have to excuse me of my repetition of some of the concepts here, but this is something I've learned from Malcolm Gladwell specifically. And this is leveraged from a study called the numbers game. So what happened in the numbers game was a famous economist called Mark Andreessen. I'm not sure if you know or heard of him. He's fantastic data scientist and economist, obviously. But what they did was he worked with his research partner and analyzed, well, soccer players, like in soccer or basketball, which one do you need a certain type of player? And what they found was in soccer, if you take the lowest level player and make a 1% tweak on the lowest players, you can improve your performance by almost 40%. So the concept there is if you increase the bar of just your average players, you can increase the performance overall as a team by 40%. So that can push you over to the winning mark, right? And then they analyzed basketball and they said, well, if you increase the performance, just 1% tweak of your average basketball players, you actually don't get that performance result. You don't get that 40%. What they found was you actually just need 3 core players in basketball to win. You only need 3 star players and then a team of average people to support them. So those 2 gains are distinctively different if you're getting an understanding of the concept, which I'm sure you are. One is about increasing the degree of your average players, your average workers, to be able to increase performance overall. The other is an investment in just core players. In this environment with the types of products that we sell, a good way to, I guess, outline that is the types of jobs for core players are more in high frequency trading. You just need 3 people to do 99% of your turnover. In the case of a lot of products at the Chamber, we need a really good average. We're playing soccer. In my perspective, I think we're playing soccer. We need to increase the level of skill and average for all of the teams, and that can help us really push us over the line to be able to help not just meet targets but exceed them as well. So how can we actually do that? I think firstly by creating those environments where they're touching the certain products that we want them to sell all day, every day, making sure that it's just one product that they're selling that day. So one could be, day one is membership, the next day it's possibly whether it's Workplace Assured, it could be something else, Business Propel, I'm not quite sure, but they have to be focused on just one thing, as I'm sure you're aware from having read the book. But the point about the numbers game and playing soccer is whichever product that is, our average fee needs to be raised up. So their training has to be optimum. They have to be coached. And also in that environment, we need to increase their performance in that high performance sales environment through support on the day so that we're getting an uplift in all of our salespeople. We're not just getting an increase in maybe 1 or 2 people doing a lot of sales. If we can increase the average, I think we can over exceed. So that's my second idea about how we can look at testing increased sales performance. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm happy to send you notes, but I thought it might be quicker and easier if I communicated it through presentation. Thanks. Bye.